Hey guys, it's Drew again. You ever have an image on a baseball card trigger a memory from your past that has nothing to do with baseball cards? Well, I've got a story of that exact thing happening to me from a card that I recently picked up, and I wanted to share it with you today. You want to see what I'm talking about? Well, let's check it out. So the story is very personal to me, and I actually waited about a month or so to share it because, to be honest, it gets I get a little choked up. So I apologize if I get that way. But I want to go way back to when I was in high school. So a little bit. I grew up in New Jersey, and I went to a small church, and I was very close in our very small youth group. There was only about maybe 10 or 12 of us in this youth group, and every Sunday night after our Sunday night service, the group of us would go out and do something. Sometimes we went to a little diner and got something to eat. Sometimes we just went and hung out at a park in the summertime. Sometimes we would go out to a movie. Well, there was one specific time we decided as a group we were going to go out and see a movie. And there was this new movie that had come out. And we all went together and we sat together and we watched this movie together. And the mix of the kids in this group was probably about half and half of guys and girls. And we got through it. And honestly, personally, I love the movie. And I'll talk about the movie in a second. I'm sure you've seen it and have your own experiences with it. But we watched this movie and something just unusual happened at the end. After it was all done, the music and everything, the lights in the theater come back up, and every single guy is crying, or at least hiding. They're all choked up. But the girls were like, I don't get it. Like, that was okay, but whatever. And it's the only time I've ever seen a movie where it affected the guys and it didn't affect the girls when it comes to that kind of emotion. That movie, probably if you haven't guessed it, was Field of Dreams. Now, yeah, I talked early in my introduction that there's a card that has something to do with baseball. It has to do with this time and this thing. But why is it that Field of Dreams, the end of Field of Dreams especially, hits us in that one spot? And I'll tell you what it is. It's that one line where he says, Dad, do you want to have a catch? There's something about that. Now, I don't know where you grew up. I don't know if you were close to your dad, if you had a father, if you had some male role model in your thing, but there's something about somebody saying, "Do you want to have a catch?" It's just simple. And I remember going out and having a catch with my dad, with my grandfather just a couple times, with my brother a lot, or with friends or kids in the neighborhood. And I don't know what it is about playing catch. It's not really high active. There's no competition to it. I mean, we tried to get a little crazy with we would play like fast catch or something like that, or pop them up as high as we could. But what we would do is we would just play catch. We would talk or not talk. We would just back and forth and back and forth. But there's something shared in that moment of having a catch with somebody, whether it's a friend, a father, or anybody else. Well, in the Field of Dreams at the end of the movie, when the main character, Ray, says to who he realizes is this young man who is his father as a young man, and he says, Dad, do you want to have a catch? And they just grab a ball and they grab their glove and they have a catch. There's something about that moment that just hits guys a certain way that a lot of times it doesn't hit girls. So I want to talk about this card. Now I'm going to show you this card, and this is why I wanted this card on my list. Now, this card has nothing to do with Field of Dreams, but there's something in it, in the pose, in the way it's put together, that it reminds me of this scene. Even though I've looked back, I've watched the scene over, and it's really not identical by any means, but there's something about it, and I wanted to share it with you. So this card was given to me by a viewer named John. I got to meet him in Strongsville. He was such a nice guy. We got to hang out and talk cards and talk life a little bit. So John, if you're watching this, I appreciate it. This means a lot to me. But that's why I wanted this card, because this card, the image in this card, reminds me of that moment in that movie, not really the movie, but in the movie theater, where we as men or young men got all choked up and the girls really didn't get it. But the card is from 1933 Gaudi. And if you don't already know, you could probably figure it out. But it's this Paul Richards. Now, Paul Richards is an interesting thing, and he's got a lot of really kind of quirky stories throughout baseball history, not as much as a player, but more as a manager, and then beyond it as an executive, and different things that he did along the way. But I'm not talking about Paul Richards as the person. I want to talk about Paul Richards on this card. This could have been anybody who was a catcher back then. But there's something about this image. It's not just showing the catcher's gear, which is really cool. It's not just showing the mask and his glove at his feet, which is really cool. It's the nonchalant way that they showed Paul Richards standing there, unclasping or maybe clasping his chest protector, just putting on the tools of ignorance or taking them off. It was something about he was there, he was in the trenches, he was playing the game, he was doing something, or maybe he wasn't, but he was there. There's something nonchalant about that, in the same way where Kevin Costner's character just says, "Dad, do you want to have a catch?" when he sees his dad take off the mask. It's just something about that. Now, they're not similar. It may not hit you that way. You may look at this and know the movie better than I do and be like, yeah, I don't get it. But for me, that's what I think about. I think about my dad. I think about how I wish I could go have a catch with my dad again. How I always dreamed as a dad that my kids would say, "Hey, Dad, do you want to have a catch?" Or if they say you want to go do anything. A few nights ago, I have a daughter, and a few nights ago, for whatever reason, we got into kind of a little tussle, just a little friendly back and forth. She was trying to touch my face, and I wasn't letting her. To be honest, I was exhausted. I had a long day at work, and I was getting hot again, even though I'd already taken a shower. But I thought to myself, these days are not going to last. There's not going to be a time where she wants to sort of wrestle around with me. There's not going to be a moment in her life coming up in the future where that's cool anymore. And I thought, you know what, Drew, enjoy this as long as you have. And I enjoyed that moment. And I don't know if she'll ever watch this video, and it's okay. But if you know that moment as a parent, as an uncle, as a brother, as a child, take those moments. Take those moments and enjoy your children. Enjoy the people around you. And I don't know why it is that this card specific brings up all that emotion within me. A connection I had with my dad, connection I had with my grandfather, a connection I have with my children, or a connection any of us might have. But that's what this card does for me. And I love the card for it. So I may be rambling. It may not make a lot of sense. I hope you understand what I'm talking about. But that image on that card brings out that memory and in me of sitting in the theater way back in the 1980s on a Sunday night, trying to hide my tears while I watched this movie when the women just didn't get it. What does it do for you? I appreciate it as always. Until next time, you guys be good.